I found myself like crying one day for no reason. And my husband's like, what are you crying about? I'm like, I don't have a business yet.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest today is the very talented Allie Bloyd. Allie has been working with local businesses in one way or another for as long as she can remember. Her first job was working at her parents' real estate investment company, and after graduating top of her class with a degree in design, she went off into a career in publishing to become the editor of a local business trade magazine. After her time in publishing, she became the marketing director at two local 7- and 8-figure home improvement and remodeling businesses, and she was tasked with creating and implementing marketing and sales strategies that drove in multiple 7 figures in sales. Over the course of the years, she's grown to learn all the ins and outs of local service-based and retail businesses. Today, she's a 2 Comma Club Award winner from ClickFunnels for local businesses, a multiple 6-figure agency owner, and has used social media and educational content to grow her own business as well. My great and absolute pleasure to have you here. Allie, welcome.
Thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, that's impressive. But I'm like, whenever I read someone's bio, I get super impressed listening and hearing all the accolades, but I'm always fascinated by people, how they started the journey. So let's give the listeners a little bit of background on how you got to be an agency owner and maybe the different types of local businesses that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, from the bio, I started working with my parents' business when I was really young, and that was great for me to experience. Really just have always been a super hard worker from the time I was like 16. I have worked a lot of hours. I was always working full time, even throughout college. And it's just kind of something I really enjoy. I like being able to see progress and build momentum and obviously make money. But after I graduated, actually, while I was still in college, I got a job at the local trade publishing company. So they had different industries that they had created trade magazines for. These industries were local businesses. And so what they were doing was publishing content that could help those business owners and selling the advertising to industry suppliers and businesses. So very similar to ultimately what I do today, but in a much different format. At that time, I was hired to do graphic design, writing, marketing, and then I eventually got into ad sales, but I helped them launch a brand new magazine for the jewelry industry. So this was for local jewelry stores, and it was just very exciting for me because I not only saw how many challenges these businesses really had, but I loved being able to help them, and I loved the feeling of ownership that I had starting that magazine from scratch, literally doing everything, making the sales, producing the content, getting everything ready to go. And it was the first time that I knew for sure that my purpose was to be an entrepreneur. I'd already had business ideas in the past that I had planned on pursuing, but things kind of shifted and that opportunity was there. So that's what I focused on. Ultimately, that wasn't a good fit. It definitely taught me about sketchy business owners. So I left and then ended up just starting my marketing director phase in my career. So I did that for quite a while. That was also a great experience, not only because I was in charge of every aspect of marketing these businesses, hiring people to work with me, training those people, creating their customized strategy, coordinating everything with the sales team, but I really, really understood on a much deeper level the internal issues that local businesses face. So I was already aware of them. I knew a lot of their marketing and sales challenges from the publishing side, but I really saw, wow, there's a lot of structural issues that are going on in these businesses. And it was very consistent with every business I spoke with or worked with. And those things had to be fixed or addressed in order for them to really see the most from their marketing spend. If your sales team isn't willing to use a CRM, you're going to have trouble understanding where you are in the sales process and even seeing a clear return on investment. If you don't have people that are willing to follow up, that's another major issue. If there's a disconnect between the information that a sales team has versus what's being put out on the marketing side, that's another issue. And then obviously being able to really kind of transition these businesses into the new age of digital, so to speak, because, it's not like it was that long ago, but businesses, especially local, have been very resistant to change in terms of technology. And I think we're probably a lot farther along with that now due to everything that's happened with COVID. But that was absolutely a major issue at the time, still is with a lot of people. So I just decided that, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I love marketing. I love writing. I love strategy and design and everything that goes into it. But eventually I just realized, why am I doing this for someone else? Why have I not started my business yet? I've, told myself I was going to start this business for years. And in all honesty, I kept thinking I would start some type of product business. I always had this feeling that I would just create a brand and market my own product. And I didn't actually connect the dots for a while that you've been doing marketing forever. Like, why don't you just start a marketing business? So I felt kind of silly when I finally realized that, but it was a great realization. And I just wasn't feeling aligned, I guess you can say. I think any entrepreneur, if they know that's their calling, if you're working for someone else, it's going to crush your soul. It will not make you feel like you're doing what you were put on the earth to do. And that's how I felt. And I had just had my daughter. She was about 1 year old when I finally started my business. And it was just one of those things where I realized I'm not ultimately going to have any more security working for someone else. I'm going to miss out on a lot of her life, just commuting and not being present. Even if I work the same number of hours, I can work from wherever. I can see her whenever. I don't have to drive. I can take her to the zoo for a day if I want to. And it just really felt like the right time. So I just decided to do it and I made the leap, and it's worked out phenomenally ever since, and probably the best decision I've ever made. So very excited to be able to work with local businesses and currently other agency owners and marketers that also serve local businesses. But my passion is very much to help the businesses that serve our communities, because without them, what do we have? We've already shifted so much of our world online. Not all of that is healthy. We need real physical contact, human connection. We also want to be able to walk out our front door and go buy something, hire someone to help us, that is not really ever going to be possible online. So they've definitely lost a lot of market share to e-commerce over the years. Not to say that there's anything, there's nothing wrong with e-commerce, but they have not been competing. They have really just kind of like rolled over and taken it in terms of this market share being taken away from their business because they weren't aggressively advertising. They weren't moving into the future at all. And so that's just what I try and help them do. And ultimately, I've done just about every type of marketing out there. I've done, TV buying, commercial production, print, everything. But Facebook and Instagram ads became what I was really passionate about. Super trackable, very creative. I could use the educational content strategy that I'd already been using previously in those more traditional forms of marketing. And it just became a really great fit. So that's what I've focused on primarily for the last, really about 5 years, I guess you can say. And everything else that goes along with that, such as, funnels, landing pages, email marketing, CRMs, follow-up systems, content, all of that jazz. So my goal is to allow these businesses to create a full system, not just teach them how to run an ad or two, to really take it from the beginning and say, what are you even trying to accomplish here? Are you even promoting the right products and services? Do you even know anything about your audience? And then create the strategy based around that, help them develop the front end with the content, the ad account setup, all of the advertising, all of the campaigns that are going to happen after the fact, the funnels, help train their sales team, give them scripts, processes, and really help them, see it through so that they can see a real financial return. And I feel like that's probably been the biggest disconnect for local businesses, is that they never knew how much they were actually making from their marketing. So it was scary for them. And if it's scary to put your dollars into marketing, you're probably not going to put enough dollars into your marketing, and you're not going to grow as aggressively as you could, or maybe not at all. And that's really the biggest transformation that I'm able to see helping people implement this, is they finally feel like they have the control over their business growth. And of course, there's always going to be things that happen or external circumstances that you can't control. But overall, it really can be like turning on a faucet and turning it off, or, cranking it up if you need to, and being able to see very consistent results at that point.
So your passion is definitely there. So listening to you talk, I could definitely see there's a passion for helping local business. But I want to take a step back just for a second.
Yeah.
When you decide to go out on your own, I mean, I wonder what it's like, only because when I started my first business, I've only had one other job when I graduated university until I realized that I was not meant to be an employee.
Yeah.
And went out. But you've had multiple jobs. You've spent most of your time actually being an employee before you went out on your own. What was the first day like compared to, or I guess even the first few months like compared to what you thought it would be? Because everyone thinks, I'm going to go leave my job, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Boom, things are going to roll. And then all of a sudden they leave and they're like, oh man, I kind of miss that job a little bit. I kind of miss that, like you're on your own. So I'm just wondering what that was like for you, the beginning steps of having been in the workplace most of your time and then going out on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs talk about the fact that maybe they were like terrible employees, or they got fired from every job. They just weren't willing to take direction from other people. They knew they needed to be on their own. I was kind of the opposite. I was like the star employee at every job I've ever had. I was, I definitely would have been able to climb the corporate ranks, so to speak, but I've never been a fan of corporate structures. I'm creative. I speak my mind. I'm not trying to have somebody control every aspect of what I'm doing. And it was kind of hard because I did have that, I got raises consistently. I was definitely continuing to rise. But I think the biggest thing for me was simply that internally, I felt like it was not right. I found myself like crying one day for no reason. And my husband's like, what are you crying about? I'm like, I don't have a business yet. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I just couldn't really stop that voice inside of me anymore. I just knew I had to do it. So I had been working with that company for a while as their marketing director. I was very well liked and respected there. And I made the decision that regardless, I was going to start this business, but I transitioned my current employer to a client. So I ended up doing the same exact things that I was doing for them, but instead of being an employee, they were now my client. So that was actually a huge benefit for me because my salary was the exact same. I still had my salary, but obviously, differences in how that actually is brought in and distributed tax-wise, but it gave me a really great opportunity to not have to stress so much because I didn't take a leap with nothing. I had a new daughter. I was not trying to completely just rock my world and put my family in a bad position. So again, I probably would have done it regardless. I would have made sure that I had other clients signed on before I did that, just as that safety net. But it was a really great opportunity for me to grow quickly because I had all the financial support that I needed. It's what I had currently been living off of. And I already had almost all the programs I needed. I already had all the equipment. It's what I'd been doing for a long time. So there's virtually no capital that I had to invest to get started. But I will say it is definitely a mindset shift in a lot of ways. Not that I hadn't been doing the exact same things, but you really realize very quickly that you can't do it alone and that you've got to get people on board right away. So I had 3 assistants at my previous job. So I had that help before, and then I go from having that help to doing virtually the same thing, but not having any help. So in terms of manpower, that was a big issue. So I just went ahead and hired somebody pretty quickly to help out with all of those things. I started really just with organic marketing, in all honesty. I did a lot of Facebook group engagement. I would just really respond to other people and help them out and give them insights. And I'd occasionally post things, but it was really more about just engaging with others and starting to build a name for myself in those existing communities. And it worked out really well. I was able to get clients quickly without doing too much. I didn't spend any money to get those clients. It was really more of just trying to be that person that someone knows is credible because they've already given you information for free. And I already had sales experience at that time. So closing clients was not really my issue. It was a lot about the processes and the systems and just getting a plan together for how I wanted to grow. And probably about, I'd say maybe 5 months in or so, we got some great PR and had, kind of our first like explosive month. And then from there, it really continued to grow. I mean, most months in my business have been the best month yet. So we've had a handful that were the same, not a ton that were down from the previous month, but the trajectory has definitely continued to grow almost every month. And that's been really awesome because I continue to reinvest that back in my business. I'm not a big spender like on personal stuff. I've just always been pretty frugal. So I have no problem buying anything for my business or investing in my business or in coaching for my business, but I save a lot. So I never had a financial issue in terms of being able to actually use the tools that were going to help me grow. I ended up hiring my first coach, I guess about a year after I officially started. So I'd probably only been full-time for like 6 months at that point. And that was a really big step for me. I honestly was kind of skeptical of coaching for a while, just seeing all of the unqualified coaches out there, I guess you could say. Like, I'm sorry,
it's a
but
polite way to put it. I like it.
It is a 20-year-old life coach. I have a hard time swallowing that because there is a certain level of experience somebody needs to have in order to really help others. And it's not that I feel like you have to go through the exact same things as everyone, but there's a lot of maturity that happens after that point that I feel is important. So I wasn't really looking for a coach. It just kind of happened. He's a great guy. Went ahead and joined his program. That was awesome. Then I ended up hiring another coach simultaneously, like 6 months later. And that was specifically for agency growth. So at that time, agency work is what I'd focused on for the most part. I actually created my course as the very first thing I did. I'm kind of glad I did that at this point because it took a lot of time and effort, and I didn't have that time after I started the agency. So I was glad to go ahead and have that resource and that asset that I could use. But the agency model was something that I thought I really, really wanted to go full force with. And so I hired someone to really help me with the processes and the systems and different sales strategies and things like that. That was also really great. But ironically, that coach encouraged me to start my group program. So I had no intention of doing that at the time, but I had just gotten my 2 Comma Club award. I'd been on the Social Media Marketing Podcast, which is like #2 podcast in marketing in the world. I had a couple of other like opportunities that came up. And so I was getting a lot of outreach from other people in the marketing space, also local business owners, but a lot of people that were not who I was going to work with as an agency. And so he just felt like it was a good time for me to just go ahead and try and maximize all of this opportunity that was coming my way and start a program. It was the best decision ever. I mean, that really is like the power of coaching, because if I had learned nothing else besides getting that one push, I mean, it would have been worth it 100 times over. I've made so much as a result of that one decision that is really hard for me to feel like would have happened without someone there to encourage me, because it was not my intention in any way. So now we do a lot of agency work, but I also do a lot of mentorship. That is local businesses and local agencies, local marketers. So we've got people that focus on, Facebook advertising. We've got people that focus on Google ads that maybe they want to expand their service offerings. We have people that focus a lot on social media management. They want to get better at that, but also learn the ad side. I've got video production people in the program. So kind of diverse group on the marketing side. And then really every type of local business owner you can think of. We've got retailers, service businesses. I've actually had some like online coaches join the program, some like digital products, not necessarily who I market to, but they felt confident that I could help them, and I can. So it's definitely fun for me because I get a lot of variety. I get to help people in a lot of different ways with different strategies. And so ultimately it's just a lot of helping them understand the fundamentals, most importantly, first, because I feel like that's really missing, not only in the local business space, that's kind of expected, but really on the marketer side. I mean, there is so much that people don't know before they get into this marketing field. And then they wonder why they're having a hard time getting results for their clients or retaining clients or growing their own business. And it's really a fundamental lack of understanding of marketing in general and psychology of buying and the sales process that people are naturally going to go through. So once we kind of educate them on all of those things, it's very much technical implementation. We do a lot of work on the screen together. And I feel like that's one of my biggest priorities, because I know from almost everyone we've ever spoken with who's joined some other type of program, they felt like they had nothing to show for it in the end. And I hate to hear that from people, because I'm like, how could you possibly work with a coach or mentor and not have a tangible thing to have at the end of that? So it was always my goal to say, this is not about talking. This is not about theory. This is about strategy and setting it up, doing the work, using all of these templates and all of these systems and making it happen, because that's the only way it's going to work for you. You've got to have all the pieces in place if you expect this to be something that you can utilize to really grow your business. Otherwise, you'll be in the exact same position that you were in previously. So it's definitely evolved a lot over the last couple of years, but I'm very much excited about that side of my business. It's a much different dynamic, lots of variety, like I said, and I can just, help a greater number of people in that type of format, but still really enjoy agency work, a little bit more selective, about who we work with at this point. But that's something I'll never stop doing. I have got to be able to consistently work my skills, practice, try new things. I'm not going to be one of those people who is teaching something that they stopped doing themselves. So always going to be a big priority, just might look a little bit different in the future. Who knows?
So in your mind, when it comes to marketing and advertising, what's the biggest difference in those in techniques, I guess, for local businesses versus other types of businesses?
Definitely the targeting and the audiences is a big one. You've got a much smaller area to work with for a local business. And there's definitely some advice that's out there that I don't necessarily agree with, but a lot of times people are trying to get so specific in the targeting that they have no one in their audience, or they're going way too broad. And the truth is, you and I both know that broad targeting is something that you can work with, but it's usually not a good first step. You need to have some data behind it. You need to have tested some things. And we do try and go as broad as possible. But if there are age ranges and areas of the city that are simply never going to buy, there's no point in spending your money advertising to them. The other thing I would say is I don't really believe necessarily that it's that much different for local businesses versus online businesses. But the biggest difference to me is that online businesses already have a lot of online assets because that's how they run their business. Local businesses had virtually nothing, very little, and they didn't have an understanding of any of the other online processes and programs that they could utilize to make life and marketing quite a bit easier. They didn't even know how to take payments online. They weren't tracking anything. So I feel like being able to get all of those things set up for them is a huge priority, because otherwise they're still going to be in the dark about what's really happening. And then finally, just the community involvement. You know, you've got to realize that you're serving an area, hopefully forever. You know, you want to be in that location long term. You want to be a staple of the community, and you've got to see it like that. So short-term gain, very, very important, but this is a long game. You know, it's not about making $1 million tomorrow if you go out of business next week. It's about consistently getting the return, but also growing incrementally, being in control of things a lot more, but also realizing that just because this person isn't my customer today doesn't mean they won't be my customer tomorrow. Whereas I know a lot of e-commerce businesses, there's so many people out there. It's kind of like you can cycle through people. Like if you don't buy in 7 days, bye-bye. Like I'm not retargeting you as much. You know, it's just, you tend to forget about them because there are a lot of other fish in the sea. It's really about relationship building in so many ways on the local business side, doing things that will educate the community and make you stand out as an expert, because people will refer each other. You know, these are people that live in the same town. They will be referring people by tagging them on your ad, and a lot of other ways to get great publicity by doing community activities and charities and donations and fundraisers and things like that. So a lot more about being part of this group of people and nurturing this entire community, while also trying to get those short-term returns. You really can't forget about anybody, because people age in to your audience, they age out of your audience, they become interested due to life events. So lots of different things could change, but if they've never heard of you before, they're not necessarily going to be ready to buy from you. We want someone, as soon as they become available to purchase, you're the person you already want them to go to. And that's really what you can do just through content and really engaging with those people, helping them, being altruistic, you know, instead of just saying bye, 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 which is what a lot of people in all businesses ultimately are doing, that is causing them to fail.
The biggest challenge I see, and I agree with everything you said, but one of the biggest challenges I see working with local businesses comes down to budget, right? When you're dealing with online e-commerce and sales are coming in and things that are easily trackable, like right away, instant ROI. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that budget question for a lot of local businesses. If there's a local business that's listening right now, what's the barrier of entry? What do you need to get started?
The answer is going to be a little bit different based on the industry, in all honesty, and ultimately what your goals are. So like I mentioned before, a local business, they really can kind of decide how aggressive they want to go. If I'm a bricks and mortar retailer and I want to get more foot traffic in the door, well, maybe I'm going to focus on literally a 1 mile radius around my store and market to that 1 mile radius aggressively, because they're already in the area. It's not going to be the most effective thing in the world long term, but if that's what they can do right now, it's better than not doing anything, because the truth is that if you're doing it right, it's going to produce a financial return. That return can then be reinvested, and you continue to be able to increase your own ad spend that way. A lot of times it's not that they don't have the money, it's that they're so skeptical and hesitant because they've never seen this work for them or a business like theirs, and they've never been able to track anything. So the concept of return on ad spend is like completely foreign. And that's the only thing somebody should be focusing on. But yeah, there's a lot of things you have to put in place to be able to track that and make it happen. So if you've got a business that is willing to start with a smaller goal, they can start with a smaller budget. You've also got maybe more of an engagement and awareness type of goal, which I don't really ever suggest that that's all someone does. It is a great starting point. It is part of the overall strategy that we teach, but that would really be for somebody on a very low budget, mainly trying to get the word out as much as possible, really establish the audience, warm them up. But then you're going to need some additional funds if you really want to start driving those conversions. And then certain industries just naturally have a lower cost per lead. So if you've got one of those industries, you, in theory, can spend less to still get decent results. So real estate is one of those industries where, plenty of people use low ad spends with real estate. The question is, what's really happening with those leads? Are $2 leads converting? Are they? Or is it taking a lot of them to get those conversions? Because if it's taking a lot of them, it's still great to get those people in, build the email list. Again, those people are in your community. You can work with them later. People buy more than one house. They sell houses. They're still potential customers, even if they don't convert today. But if you know that it's going to take 300 leads to get a sale this month, well, why wouldn't you spend what you need to spend to get 300 leads to make one sale? And so the quality of the lead is a big thing. How deeply you're really capturing them, what the offer is. I mean, all of those things are going to play a part, but I never see it as a bad thing to build an email list for a local business because it matters. It makes a big difference. And if they can just kind of see it as only return on investment as the focus, like I don't care about engagement, I don't care about reach, I don't care about likes, I care about sales, then you can really understand, okay, if I need this many leads to get this many sales, just kind of reverse engineer it based on what you're hoping to achieve. I typically don't suggest anyone spends less than $2,000 a month. That's just me personally, because I feel like if you spend less than that, you're really hurting yourself in terms of being able to test anything or generate real conversions, because you're also not going to be able to test anything, but you're not going to be able to use those content first strategies and add in your retargeting because there's not going to be enough budget to spread. And so spending too little is definitely an issue, not just in terms of expectations, because they're like, well, I spent $300 and I didn't see any results. I'm like, well, where were you looking for those results first and foremost? Like, what was the goal here? And were you actually checking that thing was happening? Because if you just are using an engagement objective, well, your engagement is your results. You told Facebook that's what you wanted. Does that mean that sales couldn't have come from that? No, they could have, but you would not have been able to tie it back. So people just have out of whack expectations a lot of times. And that's why they spend too little, because they spend some money. And if they don't see something magically appear, they're just too scared to spend anything else, without realizing that this is a business investment. You've actually got to be committed to this to do it the right way. You've got to be willing to give it enough money to really give it a fair shot. If you talk to any TV station, radio, newspaper, they're all going to tell you, you're going to need 6 months to really evaluate the results. Things aren't perfect from day one. You also need to give it X number of dollars. Otherwise, people aren't going to see you frequently enough. You're going to be a blip on the radar. And then ultimately that money is kind of lost, because somebody seeing you one time is not enough for a conversion in 95% of cases. And if they never see you and you didn't get any conversions, that commercial, whatever you paid for that, it's gone. So with any type of marketing, you've got to be able to give it time and money. And if you don't have those things, do what I did. Organically grow as much as you can, invest the extra money into your paid advertising, because organic can only get you so far in most businesses. You are going to need to do something on the paid side if you care about growing aggressively. So instead of trying to take $1 here and $1 there, maybe you just shift your focus to organic and you save those dollars till you have enough dollars to really make it work to your advantage.
Yeah. And everything you said is 100% true in my experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that sometimes awareness campaigns are important, because if you're a business that, let's say, you need top of mind awareness, because unless they need you, they're not calling you. You're not a coffee shop. You're not a real estate agent. So unless they actually need you, plumbing, something like that, no one's going on Facebook saying, they're saying, I'm looking for a plumber. Oh, I found it. I've been having this leak for 3 months. Good thing I saw your ad and clicked on it. But if you could always stay top of mind, it's an affordable way for a local business to actually, keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. Especially with video. I mean, anybody who's got a low budget, You don't need a high budget to produce videos. Use your phone, go outside, get some natural lighting. I mean, that's really all you need today. Add an app in the mix and you've got a great video ad. But it's going to be such a more affordable way for them to reach a larger number of people and also get a more extensive message out there. People can connect through video. They feel like they get to know you. I had
which is one of the most important things, especially for a local business, is they have
Mhm.
to trust you. They have to like you. That's what's going to make people pick up the phone and call you. I just have one question for you.
Yeah.
How has the game changed regarding the pandemic for local businesses? How have you been able to shift or pivot a lot of your clients?
You know, it really has hurt me to see what's happened to local businesses. I mean, I obviously care about people. I care about people's health, but I also truly believe that local businesses are what keeps our world spinning. You know, local businesses employ their community. They're the ones that are paying people so that those people have money to spend. They're the ones paying taxes like to the state in this most significant portions. So hurting this group hurts everyone in the community. And I've, seen people online talk about, oh, I've been driving through different cities and it's so sad to see they're so empty and it's horrible. And the truth is that there has been a way for almost all local businesses to stay in business and continue selling. But if you had no digital presence, if you had no digital assets when COVID hit, you were going to be very far behind. The businesses who already had an understanding, a plan, or the pieces in place, they were able to shift quickly. They probably still had some trial and error, but it wasn't anything that they couldn't overcome. The people who've been hurt the hardest, I think, are those who have accepted their fate, in terms of this was outside of my control. There's nothing I can do. Well, that's not true.
Sitting on their hands saying, I'm going to wait till things go back.
Exactly. Things have not gotten back, and it's been a solid 6 months at this point. So do I hope that this does go back to normal very soon? Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of businesses out there that are praying that it does, but we can't assume to know what's going to happen in the world. And we've got to be willing to make the changes quickly, not overthink it, not stress about it, because the truth is, yes, you can hire someone to help you. Absolutely. But the information is out there if you're willing to find it. It does take someone that really has initiative and drive and is willing to take responsibility for the results that their business is producing. The clients that we've worked with have actually not really been phased. It's been a great thing. I mean, granted, they're one of those businesses. We were already working with them. We already had what we needed to have. We were actually running an offer for live events for remodelers specifically. That's something that I've done for a long time. And obviously live events, not a thing much for the last 6 months. Granted, I feel like they're coming back. We've had plenty of, groups going out. They don't have to be huge events or anything. But we just turned it into an online video training. And honestly, it's been crushing it. I still think that it's a much better move to have the in-person events. There's so many benefits that cannot be replicated in a virtual environment, but it's not the only way to do it. So it's like, if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to choose the live event. Absolutely. People actually hear the content. That's the most important thing. Someone can sign up for something all day, but do you know if they watch the whole thing? And if they watch the whole thing, if the content's powerful, they should be very likely to buy. And that's what happens at the live events. They can touch and feel, they can tell you their story. I mean, it's totally different, but it's just an example of taking what we had. I actually did it as a webinar for the clients. And I just used my own training for their trainings because they just weren't familiar with how to do it yet. And I guess that's another benefit of working with somebody. You don't have to figure it out yourself. I mean, in that case, they didn't have to say, I need to try and figure out how to put on a webinar and do this and that. I just said, okay, I'll do it. And it was done in an hour. So lots of great things that you can still do. I mean, even our orthodontic clients, no downturn. That's probably like the biggest industry I would think that people are hesitant to go into. Many of them were forcibly shut down. And then obviously it's one of those things where if it's not an emergency, maybe you're not going to go, but we were still able to help them continue to grow even during a pandemic. And interestingly enough, it's kind of opened up a new demographic for them. They're getting a lot of younger people that are coming in, and it's just been a very interesting thing to see. So my clients haven't really been affected. I didn't know what was going to happen with my own business. Obviously, I work with local businesses, but it's been great. Honestly, we've continued to have our best months, and I think it's because local businesses, they need help. They're actively seeking out help because they have been thrown curveball after curveball that's never really happened to them before. And they finally see that they need to do things differently. And so even though everything about coronavirus has been negative, I'd say that's the one positive that I see, that local businesses have been forced into adapting to new ways to market, communicate, and run their businesses that will serve them long term, even as a local business. You don't have to be selling online to be tech savvy and utilize technologies.
Yeah, sometimes, you're not going to jump in the pool. It just makes sense to get pushed in. And I think you're 100% right. If there's a silver lining in it for local businesses, it's that they were pushed into a pool that they would have had to jump into eventually.
Absolutely.
And they were taking too long. We'll end with this. I want to provide some value for the listeners. If you're a local business right now, what are the top 3 tips you have for them in order to start marketing online?
The first thing they need to do is really get a clear plan in place. The biggest mistake, in my opinion, is to just hop on the platform and put an ad up, because you won't know what your intended purpose is, which means you're not going to craft it in the right way. You won't have done the research in terms of the audience, the numbers that you need to be hitting, all of that. And you're definitely not going to have the tracking in place to see if it works. So step 1, just plan it out. Like anything else in life, when you have a plan, you're going to see better results. And even if you don't see better results than you would have, you can look back at your plan and say, what can I do differently? Where did I go wrong? So being able to really understand your numbers in terms of a good cost per lead, cost per acquisition, customer lifetime value, all of that, understanding your audience and your avatars. Most local businesses do not understand that concept at all, because you're not marketing to the same exact person every time. You've got different products, different services that appeal to different people, but sometimes the same product or service appeals to people in totally different ways and for different reasons. So once you've got all of that data, you're then going to be able to have a much better chance of success. And the second thing I would say is just come up with a really great offer. Same concept. Most local businesses don't even know what an offer is. They think it's like a Black Friday sale, and they don't realize how important it is to the success of their advertising. If they don't have an offer, they're going to do what they've always done, which is throw up a TV commercial that goes out to everyone in the city. There's no variation. And it says, we're the city's #1, blah, 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 around since 1975. Come see us today. They're not even making an offer. They're not even putting anything out there other than, this is who we are. Call us when you need us. Not going to drive the type of results that you're going to be looking for. And then finally, really analyze your sales processes on the front end. Know what your salesperson does every day. Know what they're saying to people, know their follow-up, and listen to those calls or those meetings or those transactions, and try and tighten that up first, because that is going to dictate so much of the return. You can get all the leads in the world. You can get all the scheduled calls, scheduled appointments in the world. But if somebody does not know how to close them or maximize them, no amount of marketing is going to help that. They are directly tied together. And don't wait until you've already gotten 1,000 leads that haven't been followed up with before you realize that your sales systems have a problem. So ironically, nothing to do with the ad platforms themselves, but those are just, another example of why the foundational pieces are going to make all the difference once you finally implement. And those are things that you're going to be able to use on any advertising platform, not just Facebook and Instagram.
I love the been around since 1975, as if that's what's going to be the tipping point.
Exactly.
Oh, you've been around since 1975. I was going to do business with someone, but they've only been around since 1982. So
Exactly.
1975, I'm in. That's what sold me.
It's very compelling.
Yeah. Allie, thank you so much for doing this. For the local businesses or for anyone listening and they want to learn more or reach out, how can they find you?
alliebloydmedia.com is my website. I've got a lot of free resources, free video trainings. I would highly encourage anyone that is interested in Facebook and Instagram ads to get my Facebook ads Jumpstart Pack. It's going to be a collection of 9 different checklists that will walk you through all of the different steps and all of the different options that you need to consider. So that's a great starting point, but lots of free content. So if you just want to check out the website in general, you're going to find a lot of things that will help you decide maybe what you need most right now. And then if you are thinking about working with someone for your local marketing, I'd love to talk to you. You can just schedule a call and we'll see if there's a good fit.
Allie is super, super talented. I know a lot of people in this online marketing world, and there's a lot of snakes out there. Allie's one of the good people. So
I appreciate that.
So fortunate to call you a friend and have you on the podcast. Allie, thank you so, so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.